What is going on, everyone? Everyone can hear me? Can everyone hear me? Going? How's it going? All right. Welcome. Hey, Dan. Thanks for tuning in. Happy Monday, everyone. Lots to talk about today. Got some new jank to talk about. Gonna go through some basing tutorials today as well. And I'm gonna be painting some Death Guard. I'm working on a Death Guard commission right now, so I'll be working on a Death Guard commission for a client and kind of take you guys through that process as well. If you guys tuned in yesterday, you'll notice that I've switched the camera angle. I think I'm just trying out a few different things, so not quite sure what you guys like better or um, if this is something that it's a slightly better angle, but I feel like it's a better angle and it's a little bit more clear as to what I'm doing. The top down's okay, but it's not amazing. So, yeah. So first thing we need to talk about is I hope everyone has seen this. But first thing we need to talk about is this Bellacore model that Games Workshop has today. So I'm gonna pull it up on screen here, and I need to kind of gush over it a little bit. So actually, totally insane. Pull it up. Still figuring out all the tech. All right, let's check this out. Here, the new Bellacore model, absolutely stunning. I'm super excited to paint this. So if you haven't seen it, it's basically the size of it's bigger than the Bloodthirster model, which is super mental, and it is like gorgeous. This is probably, for me, this is like already model of the year material. Obviously, I haven't seen what else TW is going to put out, but this new Bellacore is awesome. What I really love about it, there's a few really minute details to check out. So first, there's actually two different, there's actually quite a bit of variation. There's an AOS version of this, and there is a 40k version. And on the 40k version, obviously you have the main big difference being the Marine versus the Chaos Warrior. But there's a few other subtle differences on the base, and I'm going to see if I can pull them up side by side here. So just bear with me. That. How do I do that? You guys always have to bear with me because I'm still learning the ropes here. But just pull up this Bellacore. So. All right, so Bellacore. So I'm just going to stick with this one. So you guys can kind of check it out in Warhammer Community, the differences. But I just want to point out some really cool differences. So first, there's a Marine head here. I don't know if you guys can see the Marine head, but that is actually that is different on the 40k one. The left arm is slightly downward, so there's two arm poses, which is really cool. There's two different chest pieces. So if you look at the AOS version, you'll notice that it's got a slightly different chest piece, and then his mouth is a lot different. So I actually love this 40k version way better. I love the glowing green. I love the tongue out. It really reminds me of the Bloodletters. And this I especially love, how his pauldron is basically in his skin. Like, it's not, he doesn't use straps. Bellacore doesn't mess with straps. It's just literally in his skin. And the 40k version also has, you can actually see it in this picture. You can kind of see the top of it here. One of the skulls has a bionic eyepiece, so it's got like 40k specific skulls as well that's hanging from his chain. So I just thought I'd open up by talking a little bit about that Bellacore model. I think it's super sweet. Hey Matt, how's it going? Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, I'm excited to paint it. I just hope it comes out at a reasonable time because the GW release schedule has been super atrocious. So So yeah, so that's kind of just some news from the day that I wanted to kind of review. But I'm very excited to have that model. If anyone wants it painted, we can. All right, so getting into kind of like what I'm going to be working on today. Um, I'm going to be working on a few things. So I have acquired through dark magic and packs with a few chaos gods 3 boxes of Deathtrap Terminators. So I've been trying to track down these models for quite some time to paint for my Death Guard. This is my personal collection. I'm also working on a set of 7 Death Guard characters. So I got the Putrefier, the Plague Surgeon, Bob Lightspawn, a Lord of Contagion, a Malignant Plaguecaster, and a Tallyman. Wow, that was a mouthful. So those are going to be the 5 models I'm going to be working on today. I'm going to probably go for about 2 hours. But the first thing that I wanted to talk about is some basing, and I get a lot of requests and questions about how I do my basing. Let me see if I can find a model that would be a good model to showcase. I'm gonna reach up above my shelf, and hopefully there's a model here with some basing. So here we go. We have this is a possessed Death Guard, and you guys can check out my Instagram, either JimOV_paints or Duplicity Paint Instagram. And I do like a very kind of cork basing scheme, and I get a lot of questions about that. So I just wanted to kind of go through kind of how I do that. So what I have here, a few different things. So I have, there's a few secrets. So here is Elmer's Pro Bond. This is basically a, it's supposed to be a wood filler, but and I've used a lot of different types of basing filler, but I actually find this is probably the best filler. So this is something that I really like. I have some cork. Now there's a few different types of cork you can get, but this is basically like a hard cork. It's quite dense. A few other types of cork you can get. They're like, they kind of crumble a lot more. I don't like those ones, but this is actually where I got this is basically a Lazy Susan that like you get those like they're meant to like put your pots and pans on, and they're like really dense cork so that like you don't burn your table. That's literally, I got a 3-pack of those from like Walmart for like $6, and this tub of Elmer's Pro Bond, which is about $10. So this is really cheap material to get. And then I have a sculpting tool. So this is a Games Workshop sculpting tool, texture tool. Don't ask me where I got this. I never bought it. I would never pay for a GW sculpting tool. I think it came with like a painting kit or something that I won, but I use this one specifically because it is a little flexible. And then some super glue. So this is an old bottle of super glue, and that's actually a really good tip. I find that super glue over time, it's kind of can get quite gnarly. And so what I usually do is I have kind of like a super glue dump, and anytime I'm getting kind of close to the end of a bottle, I'll dump any of the extra that's starting to get kind of quite thick and kind of gnarly into that bottle. And so this is actually like 3 types of super glue, 3 brands kind of mixed together, and it's super thick, much thicker than when you buy it. And it's not quite as sticky as like, it won't quite bond the same way as like regular super glue. But because I'm just doing terrain and basing, this is perfect for that. I don't need a quick bond or like something that's going to be super thin. I want kind of a thick glue. And then you need a very sharp hobby knife. I actually got like a 10-pack of these like really, really tiny box cutters off Amazon. And then you need some bases. So I'm going to open this first box of Death Guard. What's going on, Adam? Good to see you. So I'm going to pull this box of Death Guard, and I'm going to pull a base out. These Death Shroud are actually disgusting in 8th edition, or 9th edition. I think they're probably the best unit in the Death Guard book. So, and these boxes, to get these boxes, I had to like literally like track them down at like random hobby stores throughout the US, get them shipped to my restaurant in Portland because they wouldn't ship to Canada, and get the people in the restaurant to ship me them to Canada. So that's the length I went to track down these Death Shroud. They cost me I got them at normal retail price, which is nice. Actually 15% off, so it ended up working out, but they're amazing, especially paired with a Biologist Putrefier. And the jank with that is basically, for those of you that are gamers and actually play competitively like me, the jank with that is the Putrefier lets you pick 1 core unit that basically does mortal wounds on 6s to wound. and so Death Shrouds are obviously core, so you combine those two things together. And then instead of doing your cleave attack, which is your big attack with your Death Shroud, you switch to the sweep attack, which basically doubles their attack. So each Death Shroud Terminator is going to get 4 attacks base. So a unit of 4 Death Shroud is going to get 34 attacks, hitting on 2s. Now, if you give the Putrefier Arch-Contaminated Warlord trait, he's going to let them reroll all wound rolls. So basically the way that you do it is you charge them in, they're going to hit on 2s, hopefully you have a Lord nearby, rerolling 1s, and if they're hitting on 3s for any reason, say there's enemies at -1, you can use a strat to give them +1 hit. So you're almost getting, let's say, 33 hits, and then you roll your 33 wounds, and you're fishing for 6s. So with the Arch-Contaminator, you can actually reroll all your wound rolls, and so 34 dice with full rerolls, you're getting about 7 or 8 wounds, 7 or 8 mortal wounds from on the Death Shroud, on top of their normal damage. So it actually statistically, even against really tough targets, it's much better to do the sweep attack because of the mortal wound generation, and obviously mortal wounds ignore saves. So you're able to basically take down things with a huge amount of kind of toughness with just a unit of like 4 Death Shroud. And the Putrefier, he's only 65 points, which is crazy. So so that's really nice. All right, so getting into the bases, I'm going to put these Death Shroud aside. I'm going to actually build these later on stream. But yes, so first thing I do, now this stuff looks kind of goopy, and it does actually dry out pretty regularly. So every once in a while, I'll actually add a little water to it. If you don't have a squeeze bottle like this, I highly recommend it. This is basically a like you can get a 2-pack for like $6 on Amazon, and they're actually really good for hydrating your wet palette, washing out your airbrush, adding water to stuff, etc. So and the nice thing about this is because it's separate from your paint water where you're going to wash your brushes, you're not going to have like metallic flakes in here or other things like that. So I highly recommend getting one for your water. I also use one here for my airbrush medium, and I have another one here with airbrush cleaner, or sometimes if you want to put isopropyl alcohol. So for like literally $10, you have these really nifty tubes. So this is very nicely hydrated. I'm not going to do much with it. And first thing I'm going to do is basically take my cork and basically just break it up with my hands into kind of rough pieces to match my my base sizes. So sometimes you don't want them all the same. You do want a variety of these bases. So I'm going to do like basically one small like that, and then just one big like that. And the reason I'm going to just use one here is because I'm actually going to cut it in half. If I put this on the base just like that, it's like an inch, almost a quarter inch, half an inch add to the height, which is a little bit too much for our purposes. We don't want these guys being like super chunky. So I'm just going to cut this in half really roughly. My knife. Make sure it's a very sharp box cutter. Cut it in half. And I usually try to cut it at an angle so that like the pieces aren't flat, so they're kind of like angular pieces. Okay, so I got my piece here, and I can actually do like, I'm gonna do 9 bases today, but I'm just gonna show you these first 3 before I move on. So, so next thing is I'm gonna get my super glue, and because this is that older super glue, it's gonna be super thick. You can kind of see how thick it is, hopefully on camera. So it's like really thick. Just kind of spread that out. I know Adam likes it thick, so hopefully he likes this. I'm gonna just put that right down on the base. That. And I like to make sure that they're fairly flat on top. We can fix that later, but it's nice for them to be fairly flat so that you can attach your models to it. So thanks for everyone that's tuning in. If you're tuning in on Facebook, Twitch, and or YouTube, please make sure to follow my page on the other platforms so that I can get some followers, and I'd love to be able to have you guys follow us on all platforms. I'm going to be posting a lot of more hobby videos to YouTube and Twitch, and doing weekly live streams. Also going to be doing some discussion and bringing on some special guests as well. Hint, hint, Adam Camilleri, if you want to come on, I'd love to have a really long conversation with you about Dark Angels and why they're the worst chapter. So, all right, so I'm going to grab those 3 bases. I love the new artwork on these boxes. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Okay, going to get another 3. Like, that would be a good ASMR channel, just like opening. Actually, Koska is going to be doing some content with me. Tyrannosaurus. Well, you know what, Adam? See, everyone's doing competitive content and or hobby stuff, but I just want to have like, and I think me and Koska are going to do a bit of this, but probably not. But I want to do like some really fun sections on just like background. I know you're pretty deep in the lore, because I can tell when you talk about it on Forge Narrative. So I do know. So I want to do some more like deep dives into like characters, chapters, like various history and lore of various different like, you know, known 40k stuff. Just as a nice break from all the 40k competitive content. Okay, so I've got my 3 bases here. These ones are done. I'm gonna quickly glue on some cork to these ones. And just be really careful you don't cut yourself, because I would feel really bad and you'll feel really bad when you are missing the tip. For safety first when it comes to this stuff. And again, I've just cut this in half and then I'm gonna basically break it down, give like a little piece to each. You can go, for some, I like to just do like really small ones. I don't like to have like big pieces of cork on each base. Maybe that one will be small. A nice variety of different sizes. If you need to, you can kind of further cut these down, like little nubbins. Whoa, there goes a piece. Alright. Let me know if the music's too loud, by the way. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but like overshadowing my my voice. Alright, so next I'm gonna glue these all down. Stinky. Spotify print. Okay, and then a little one there. Okay, so that's all my basing as far as like my cork. Next, I usually save this stuff, so any big pieces like this I'll save for like the next basing, but all these little guys I'm just gonna get rid of because they're not that exciting. Everyone that is tuning in, thank you. All right, so oops, that guy kind of fell off. And then the last step here is going to be grabbing our, this is our Elmer's Pro Bond, and I'm going to basically just use the scooping end of this, the gooperator is what I'm going to call it, and I'm basically just going to dump on some goop here. And the purpose of this, the purpose of using this, and like I know a lot of people just use like straight cork and then maybe throw some sand on it and call it a day, but the purpose of this is actually twofold. So the first is to help blend the rock into the base. So generally what I'll do is I'll kind of go around the rock first with the goop to just make sure that the blend is a little more seamless and there's like a little bit of continuity between the base and the like cork. But the second reason is that if you glue directly onto the cork, because the cork can break, it's quite actually fragile. It's very easy for your models to kind of break right off your base and taking a big chunk of the cork with them. So generally I always recommend doing some on top as well, and also add some texture. So I kind of use the end here to kind of texture it a little bit, and this way it doesn't just look like cork that you painted like rock color. You can add like little crags with your tool. It's going to help you just kind of look a little bit more of a realistic rock texture. You can still leave a little bit of cork kind of underneath, and then that's it. That's basically the base. So I'm going to leave that to dry for probably about an hour, and then it'll be done. And then your final result is going to be something like this. So these are bases that I prepared earlier. They've dried super hard. I'm just going to turn it on. There we go. They've dried super hard. So it's actually, this Pro Bond is so hard that you can actually sand it. So it's got a really nice like strength to it. And then these ones will get models basically glued directly on. Now, when I'm actually gluing the models directly on the base, another trick to do is when you have a model with an, basically a inconsistent, like it's not flat, you're gonna do the old green stuff trick. So you take your model's feet, you put a little bit of super glue on each foot, you put a dot of green stuff on each foot, and then you put another dot of super glue on that, and then you kind of mash it into the base. And what that allows you to do is to have a model sit on a base like this that's not even, if it's got flat legs and it's going to bond. That super glue green stuff goop is going to bond super strong. It's going to create like a very strong bond, and then you can basically use your sculpting tool to blend the green stuff, if there's any kind of like mushed out, into the base as well. And so you end up with a situation like this is a Terminator that I painted for my. You get a situation like this where they're able to stand on a base that is like kind of risen and rocky, but it is kind of, even though their feet are flat, they're green stuffed into that that rocky base, and it's not going to break off. If you're wondering where the arm is for this, I just finished painting a whole unit of 10 Chaos Terminators, but the Lightning Claw arms have not arrived because I got them 3D printed due to the fact that GW only gives you two Lightning Claws in every 5-man box. So I have a set of Lightning Claws that have been 3D printed, and I'm waiting on those parts to arrive. But once those are here, I'm going to be able to finish that unit and also. Yeah, so that's kind of the basing tutorial. So I'm just going to continue to base these guys. And the reason I'm doing this now and not painting is because I want to glue the death shrouds onto the base. But I need these bases to be done first before I do that. So this is usually the first step I do of any model project, is I get the bases ready. Now you can also use 3D bases, 3D printed bases or resin bases. I actually do have a decent amount of those, and I think I use them kind of sparingly. But if you're looking for like a really cheap way to do a lot of bases, that's not just sand and rock, this is kind of what I think is like a really great fit. They're super tough. They look great. It doesn't require a ton of like money or on resin bases. And if you even want, you can basically add a little bit of weight to the bottom. So sometimes I'll glue like some metal if it's like a heavy model. Now that's not really a thing these days with shop, all plastic, but I do occasionally metal models or models that are quite top heavy with it, or something that like I don't know, I'm basing that. You can see here, it gets quite chunky in the back, and then on the edges it's a little bit smoother. So this is where I might add a little bit of water. You don't want to add too much water, because if it's too wet, when you go to kind of, I guess, make the texture, it's going to end up really smooth. It's going to end up very like, I don't know, like it's going to almost look like it's like polished. But you do want it to be a little bit kind of like dry and craggy. And this will allow it to have nice little kind of sharp edges, which is what you'd see in like traditional rock. So that's really important that you don't overhydrate it. And if you do, by accident, overhydrate it, just leave the lid off for a few hours. And this stuff dries actually quite fast for what it is. So you can just leave the lid off for a few hours, and yeah. So what is everyone else working on? Is anyone else working on hobby stuff? I actually just got a big amount of. I'm working on a Death Guard commission right now, but for my personal collection, I just got like a bunch of back-ordered products. So on top of these 9 Death Shrouds, I have 20 Poxwalkers. I have 2 Tempter Dreads with Volkites, Death Guard as well, and I also have this Demon Prince Sigvald that I'm painting. I talked a little bit about that. Nice, Chronomancer. Those models are so cool, Dan. Those. Yeah, sorry, I got what was that? I got Sigvald model, and I kind of talked a little bit about this on stream, and I converted him up with obviously an Abaddon sword, because you want to know the story behind me and Abaddon swords, go rewatch yesterday's stream. I kind of went into that whole history of me and Abaddon swords, so I'm going to be doing that as well. And then I'm also working on a custom actually, Adam will like this. I'm doing a Dark Angels army commission for a gentleman, and it's going to be 3,000 points of Dark Angels. So after I'm these Death Guard, that's what I'm going to be working on. Unfortunately, they will not be in the scheme of the first Legion. They're going to be in a custom scheme custom scheme. This is gonna be the custom scheme, so it's basically a turquoise with bone and gold highlights. So I'm gonna be doing that as well. And then what else? So other news, exciting news. We are playing Germany. Canada's playing Germany in the Hammer TTS event that I've been involved in. So just found out last night. We're actually number one in the event, but it's only been 2 rounds. Yeah, Dandy, the Pro Aquals are really nice. I find that they're quite matte, which is really nice, which I like. I literally douse all my models with matte varnish. I know a lot of people like satin, but I am an old Testors Dull Coat diehard. I know they don't make it anymore, but lately I've been using the Vallejo matte varnish spray, so it's like it's kind of spiritual successor to it. It's actually quite good. It comes in a slightly larger can than the ever did, or sorry, the Testors ever did. So I've been really liking that. My only complaint with the Pro Aquil is that there's not enough colors, and their range is still quite small. Germany match. Tom, I do not know the score. I just know that thing. Or I don't know. There might be still 1 game left in the Germany first match. I'm not quite sure, but I think we're playing the Germans. So, unfortunately, for those who had been in love with my Defilers, I know Tom really likes Defilers. They're no longer in my list, which is sad. But I actually found that in the TTS WTC meta, the tables are just not very good for Defilers because they are just way too trained. So I think in that case, the PVCs are probably a better choice, but I'm stubborn and I like my crabs. I don't have crabs, but I like crabs. All right, so that's it. So those are the 9 bases for my Death Shroud. Yeah. Rub it in. So those are the 9 bases for my Death Shroud. All done. I'm gonna leave these to dry to the side, and then they'll be ready to go. So that's kind of for my. I'm in the Death Shroud like donks there, Tom. I got. I'm gonna have 14 Death Shroud after these all done, which is kind of my excited for those, but. Yeah, but you know why I love my Defilers? I'm running 2 Volkite Contemptors, to be honest. I played them against a few matches, sorry, and they're just nasty with the Tallyman and the Exploding Sixes. They actually do so much damage, and the 45-inch range is just, you basically just sit them on the back line and shoot them, so I'm pretty excited to get those going. And so one of the things with TTS is, and I know this sounds kind of mental because the whole point of TTS is not to do this, is that I've been trying to build my army based on like what I actually own, so that I can actually go play in real life games once like this is all over, right? So I've been trying to basically build my TTS lists based on my real life collection, and I just got the dreads, so although they're technically not painted, if I do want to go actually like do practice games with my list in real life, I want to be able to do that, and that means owning the models that I'm putting in my list. And I do own Defilers. I have 3 of them. I'm staring at them right now, and they're beautiful, my beautiful, beautiful boys, which no one will ever. Not even. Yeah, I added. Okay, so here's the thing with my original Greek Hammer list. So for those that don't know, this Greek Hammer event, it's a 5-round, 8-player TTS event. And basically, I was really holding out playing yes for a long time. I didn't want to play it at all, and part of me still doesn't really want to play it. And the team basically came to me and said, Jim, if you want to stay on the team, you have to play TTS. So I was like, okay. So very begrudgingly, I like downloaded TTS, got it all set up, played a test game with Scary. Took like 5 hours. I was like, this is the worst. I can't believe I'm having to do this. And then this was like a week before our match with Scotland, and that TTS game was literally like my 3rd game of 9th edition. The first being one I played right when it launched, and then I played one other game of 9th edition since then. So like I literally hadn't played 40K since the launch of 9th edition because I'd just been busy with work and like opening restaurants and stuff like that. And so I was holding out playing TTS because I was happy just painting and waiting until events started and I could actually play real life games. But next thing I know, we've been signed up to this like Scotland versus um, Canada event, like a scrim match, and I'm being forced to play TTS. And before that event was even started, they said, "Oh, we've also signed up for this Greek Hammer thing. Submit your lists for Greek Hammer." So I wrote that first Death Guard list for Greek Hammer, having played approximately one game with Death Guard, having just got the book like literally like 2 days before, and really having no idea what I was doing when it came to like 9th edition 40K basically. So that list basically was kind of just like there was just so many things about that list that I hated. That it was just built really poorly, like the way that I did my detachments, the way that the models I put my certain traits on, just like the unit. Like I a perfect example is I had a unit of 11 Poxwalkers because I had 5 extra points. So I could have just as easily given that 5 points and gotten like a Reaper autocannon, but instead I put an 11th Poxwalker in, which basically means that the unit got full blast, got hit by 2d like full blast for no particular reason, just because I had 5 extra points. Like just really stupid stuff like that. So that original list, and I hadn't even looked at the WTC tables really that hard when I built that double defiler list. So that's the reason it had like a lot of weird choices. And then basically, like as soon as I had played like 3, 4, 5 more games, I was like, oh god, this list sucks. It's got so many bad choices in it. Daniel, yeah, so that's the reason. So this is I'm painting these exactly, as far as I'm concerned, exactly like the box art for the client that I'm painting these for. So these, it's basically a mix of Screamer Pink is the base coat, gets a wash of, I believe, Ruchi Violet, and then I go back in with the base coat color, and then for my highlights, I generally add, I don't like to add direct straight white to a color, because I find that it can help, it kind of washes it out a little bit. So I actually like to use this Pro Aquarel. It's this bright warm gray, so it's slightly warmer than pure white, and so I use that to highlight it up. And then yeah, afterwards, once I've done all my highlights, I'll actually go in, what I also did, I went in with a glaze of Caribou Crimson, which is the kind of red wash, and basically what I do is I take this and I thin this out with Lamine Medium, like 3:4 to 1, so it's like super translucent, and then I'll use this to glaze the blends together so it's nice and smooth, and so that what this allows me to do, especially if you're painting fast, is I can be a little bit, like, I guess, messier with my highlighting. Like my layers can be a little bit more stark, the color differences, and then I can go back and kind of glaze in anywhere where it feels like it's a little bit too extreme and just kind of tie everything together a lot more. It's just the standard. I don't actually use any of the I've never actually used any of the gloss stuff, not because I don't like it. I've never had a reason to buy it, I guess. To be honest, in general, I've just stopped buying GW colors. I generally use my Pro Aquarels for like 80% of my painting. GW, obviously, I use because they do have like a classic color range, and I have some armies with that. And then I do like their washes, GW's washes, but I bought one contrast paint, which was purple, and it was awful, and I'm like, why did I buy this? And I have obviously lots of Secret Weapon makes my favorite washes, so they do really nice washes. I have a bunch of army painter paints, but don't tell Adam Abramowitz, but I never use them, except for like the black and the white if I just want to like dry brush something. Not because they're not good paints, it's not unnecessary. There's like very few shades that they have that I can't already get in like Pro Aquarel or yeah, I don't use, so metallics I will not. I had to use Balthazar Gold for these metallics because it's close, but I generally stay away from Games Workshop metallics. They're awful. They split like the medium and the best metallics in the game. Scale 75. I do all my metallics scale 75. All my golds. They have a really good range of metallics. They also they're super smooth, super like vibrant, really good range of colors. And for my Death Guard, I use this color. It's called Decaying Metal. It's like a dark bronze. And then I basically go at it with Secret Weapon Algae Wash, which is kind of like an off-green wash. And then what I'll do from there is I'll go back in to highlight with my Decayed Metal, and I'll add basically some silver to the Decayed Metal to kind of to brighten it. But yeah, I don't fuck with GW washes or GW metallics anymore unless it's like I have probably like 2 of them, and they're just because they came in like a paint set or I won them or they somehow ended up in my collection. But GW metallics are awful. Their white is awful. Don't ever use their white. It looks like someone puked up like a bunch of porridge. So it's something that I just generally don't use. All right, so I'm gonna be working on. I don't know what I'm gonna do on these now. I'm kind of at the point in the model where, because there's 6 different models, I probably should kind of pick one and finish it. I think I'm gonna just work on the bone, because that's the last like kind of unifying, and the metal. That's the last kind of unifying thing to all these models. Once I'm done those things, I think I'm just gonna have to go and kind of finish each model individually, because each one has so many different. Yeah, my favorite white so far is the Pro Aqua white is like amazing. Also, if you can, I would highly recommend getting a tube of. This is a Liquitex Professional. It's a heavy body acrylic. It's like titanium white. This whole tube I've had for 5 years. It's like literally $5. And if you want like a super crazy white, it's like super thick, but it's like designed for like artists, like, and it's acrylic, but like it's like insanely white and it's like super thick. So just a little bit of that goes a super long way if you're wanting to do like a really bright, like insanely the whitest white you want. Grab that titanium white. I think it's even, I don't know how you can be whiter than white, but somehow they manage. And so getting a tube of that for like $5, it's super smooth, it's super thick, so you can like thin it out to whatever thickness you want. What did I say I was gonna do? So that's kind of my go-to when it comes to and whites as well. Their whites are awful. But, Tom, I saw your question about the someone asked about the Army Painter metallics. I have not. I do have a bunch of metallic colors from Scale 75, and I just never use them. Honestly, I think it's kind of unnecessary. Like, I think if you want to do something like that, you can just take like a standard silver color and just add in whatever shade you want. So either a little bit of transparent blue ink, or a little bit of like the blue color that you want. That's all really metallics are. Colored metallics are, right? They're just silver with coloring. So you can take like if you want like a dark silver metallic, I'd take a dark silver, add in a little bit of green. I want to say green, for instance. Or if I want a really bright silver, like I have this. This is actually silver. I know it looks like white. It's called White Alchemy, and this is Scale 75 as well. And this is like basically like white silver. But if you want like a super bright metallic, it's take this and you add in, or maybe this actually is just white paint. Can't really tell. It's either white paint that I forgot I had, or it's a white silver color. It's one or the other. Maybe this is the white silver speed metal. Yeah, so you just take this and add like a little bit of transparent. Like if I wanted to do, say, let's see here. One thing I don't like, I know everyone like loves dropper bottles, but I will say the dropper bottles for both my Scale 75 dropper bottles always clog. That's why I really like the Pro Aqua bottles. Never clog. Of silver, and then let's do purple. So this is, I don't know if you can see my palette. Let me see. So I got here a little bit of the silver. I wanted to say do metallic purple. I might just take a small touch of this transparent. Metallic purple. This is like a beautifully metallic purple. That's like a very bright one. If I want to go a little bit more, I can kind of go even darker. Much darker metallic purple. So that's kind of where I'm like, why would I bother metallics? Like this is a gorgeous, smooth, using like really good metallics. So if I'm gonna do a metallic color, and I have done some colored metallics in the past, but that's kind of the way I do it rather than getting like a whole different product. So, but I definitely recommend the Pro Aqua Transparents. They're like inks. on crack, basically, because they're super concentrated. Basically, you saw how little of a drop I had, and it just totally like transformed this whole pot um, stuff, basically. So cool. All right, so what are we gonna do? All right, so I'm gonna get looks like the death guard clothes you got, and oh, the loincloths. Yeah, it's slightly different. Okay, so next, what I'm gonna do? Yeah, I was gonna do bone. Got sidetracked. But if you don't have a wet palette, it's highly recommended. You can see that like my parchment's like super lame. I just buy a roll of I actually got a box of these like square parchments from Amazon. It's like 1,000 parchment squares, like this big, for basically like $8. And then I just kind of cut them up with scissors, and I just have like a whole stack of them. I actually don't like the ones that come with the sets. I find that I find that they're quite a bit different than like just regular parchment paper. I find that they're a lot thicker. I have some, and they're not quite as like thin, I guess. Like I don't know if they're designed specific, but I really like just using like kitchen parchment paper. I find that's get back there. I find that's the best thing. So this is the part where I have to like go around each model and find all the little areas. Model, which is good. So that means I just slide. Those bone. Sure. I have a bunch of the bikes. I'm not sure. I will. So he's kind of boneless. Boneless Marines. He's got a bit of bone here. The other thing this is nice for is I usually will put like a little dot of water on my palette, and that way if I just need nice and clean water to kind of like wet my brush. The sponge is just the regular sponge it comes with, Dan. It's like it comes with the wet palette, so you can get replacement ones as well. Mine just looks kind of gnarly because it's got like 2 years of like overspill and like gross paint water on it. I am also really looking forward to Warzone book. I'm really curious to see what kind of rules are in there as far as especially rules for some of the books that just came out, because it sounds like there's gonna be Sisters of Battle and also Death Guard rules in there. So I'm hoping there's not just like Crusade non-match play stuff. I'm really hoping. I think Death Guard, they're good, but like I don't know. It was really disappointing. I thought Death Guard would be, obviously they got the damage resistance, but it's really shocking to me that Death Guard, who are supposedly supposed to be like the toughest, most resilient, didn't get a single stratagem that actually improves their defensiveness. Like they didn't get anything like hey, one use only, or like stratagem that gives them like a feel no pain for a phase, or something that maybe gives them something similar to transhuman, right? So that seemed really weird to me that they're supposed to be this super resilient chapter, but a lot of their stratagems, honestly, like they're quite boring. It's like +1 to hit, yay, +1 to wound, yay. Like it's very like none of them are that exciting. They don't really change the way the army plays. Yeah, like I always like it when stratagems change the way your army plays, right? Like it totally can transform like how units. Whereas the Death Guard stratagems, they're okay. You get a few mortal wounds in there. Obviously I'd say like the stars of the show are going to be things like the 6-inch row convention on the drones. There's a lot of like weird janky ones that let your characters do mortal wounds, but they just have a lot of restrictions. Like and it's still very randomized. Like it's not guaranteed. which sucks because if you have a bad roll, so if you don't roll like a 4+ or whatever, you just don't get that. You just wasted CP. So I don't generally like, unless it's like a desperate situation, I don't generally like stratagems like that. And then, you know, a lot of them require you to be engagement range at the start of the turn, or other just quite strict restrictions. So I'm not a huge fan. I think the stratagems are still kind of weak. And then when I look at things like, yeah, I'd agree Tyrannosaurus, but like it's still disappointing. Like you turn around and then the Dark Angels got basically built-in transhuman for all their Terminators. Like that would have been nice. What if my, like, you know what I'm saying? Like a transhuman would have been awesome for all my Terminators. Or an ability to like bring back models, like do a 5+ Phenolopane for like a certain unit, or the ability to I don't know, like heal your characters or infantry. Like one of the nice things right now about playing Soup is it gives me access to the there's a stratagem in the Chaos Space Marine book that lets me either heal a Death Guard infantry model D3 wounds, or if a unit has suffered casualties, bring back a model with 1 wound remaining. And that's actually really strong on Death Shrouds, because being able to bring back a 50-point model, albeit with 1 wound, is really nice. So, and I've done that a few times because of the stratagem use. Now, obviously, I have a very strong feeling that kind of jank is going to go away eventually. But it's nice that, like, I'm like, why couldn't we have had a version of that in the Codex, right? So, to me, why they would get such kind of the short end of the stick when it comes to stratagems, compared to, say, like a Dark Angels or even just regular Marine. I know Marines have to have like all that stuff because, but it's I don't know, kind of annoying. It's really sad that Dark Angels had better terms than us. Not to mention, like, they get like all the death, like the OBSEC, the Deathwing, like that's pretty strong. Some of their Storm Shields are just so good now, especially like I think a lot of people are shields, but being able to have like a 0+ save and cover is yeah, 0+ save and cover. Like I played a game against Custodes, and those Custodian Guard in cover is just like stupid. It's so hard to shift, right? Not to mention the invulnerable, 4+ invulnerable, which is still really good. Like 3+ invulnerable was probably a bit much, but given how strong Terminators are now, I just feel like the I don't know, the 4+ invulnerable is still really good, and especially with the extra wound, right? So, does anyone remember everyone freaking out about Storm Shields when 9th edition dropped? Like all the drama around it, and then like drama, because I think you hit within like 30 seconds. It's Jay. I 1000% agree that it's worth losing. So having played probably like, there's a very few Death Guard builds that aren't made infinitely better by access to both Chaos Space Marine stratagems and Chaos Space Marine psychic powers. So to give you a really good example, like my list that I'm going into, and it doesn't have to be a lot, right? It doesn't have to be a huge amount of points. Just between a sorcerer and like you could do a patrol, Chaos Space Marines, with a cultist, right? Unit of cultists, or say like unit of Chaos Space Marines, that guy, and just a sorcerer, and that's it. Or a cultist and like a demon prince of chaos, something that's, you know, just like good on its own. And what that does for you is a few things. First, it opens up to you to it opens up a few stratagems which are super important. So the first one I think is super important is Chaos Familiar, which allows any of your Heretic Astartes Psychers to switch out spells into Dark Hereticus, which actually means if you have, say, a Death Guard Demon Prince or a Malignant Plaguecaster on the other in your Death Guard side of your army, all of a sudden you can use that stratagem on them and give them warp time. So now I have a Demon Prince, and that's what I do in my games. Turn 1, my Death Guard Demon Prince, Spell Familiars, straight into warp time. So now all of a sudden my Death Guard Demon Prince has he can move himself around 20 inches, right, a turn. So instantly it's already better, just on that one thing alone. Or he can use his speed to get to other Death Guard units and move them up. So all of a sudden, I've build a huge amount of gap, it's absolutely worth it. And that's kind of what I'm going through. And I'm trying to explain why it's worth it. That's the first thing. Second, it gives me access to Veterans of the Long War for only 1 CP. So right now, the version of Veterans of the Long War that exists in Chaos Space Marine, or the Death Guard book, is 2 CP. But if I use my Chaos Space Marine book, I can use the Death Guard +1 to wound and shoot for only 1 CP, right? So all of a sudden, again, or if I'm really being cheeky, I can use Veterans of the Long War on 1 unit and +1 wound on a different unit. Or if I want to be super ridiculous, I don't know why I do this, you can give +2 to wound to 1 unit, right? So you're able to use that, which I think is really, really strong. The third thing that I think is really, really strong is it gives you access to things like Tide of Traders, which can also be used on Death Guard cultists. It gives you access to what else it gives you access to? There's a stratagem, as I mentioned earlier, that lets you bring back or heal Death Guard infantry units. So you can use that to bring back a Death Shroud. You can use that to bring back kill some wounds on one of your sorcerers. You can use that to to do all sorts of things with that. Now, albeit it's 2 CP, but you got a Tallyman, right? So you should. And also the Chaos Space Marine side adds a lot of jank. So right now I'm running a block of 10 Emperor's Children Terminators with like full Lightning Claws. And for 280 points, I have a unit that I can put into Deep Strike, and basically it adds a lot of speed to my list, because what it allows me to do is threaten the opponent from anywhere on the board, because with Honor the Prince, which is that 2 CP stratagem, I can basically auto charge anything out of Deep Strike. Plus, when they drop, they're going to be shooting. They have Endless Cacophony, so I can have all 20 or 10 Terminators either drop all their shots into another unit, so they can clear chaff, they can clear objectives that are far away, and then charge in a separate target. If you really want, you can shoot and charge into the same target. So it's really, really strong. And honestly, like the -1 toughness, it is good, but because of the way breakpoints work with strength, like most things are either wounding on 3s anyways, like you're not double strength anyways, or like it makes a wounding 4 to maybe a wounding to wounding on 3s. But like against toughness 7 models, the -1 toughness is nice, but Death Guard don't have a lot of strength 7 stuff, so it's either strength 8, whether it's like the entropy cannons, the PPC cannons, or like close combat strength 8, or it's strength like 5 or 6, in which case, yeah, it's nice wounding from a 3 to a 2, but it's just I just found in my experience that it's just not fully worth it. I'd much rather have the kind of like additional utility of the I'd much rather have the additional utility of the Chaos Space Marine detachment. It just adds so much, and it really changes how you play the game. It also gives you access to things like Death Hex, right? So you can any point in time Chaos Familiar any of your sorcerers into Death Hex, Warp Time. If you really need damage, Infernal Gaze. So just the possibilities it opens up with the psychic powers and the stratagems, especially getting Warp Time, I think is like such a strong thing. Now there are certain Death Guard lists I think that are good kind of on their own, where you don't need that. But I actually think overall the faction is stronger with a little bit of Chaos Space Marine spice thrown in. And the unfortunate part is we're probably going to lose that, because the way GW is going, I'd imagine that all of the Chaos Space Marine spells get FAQ'd to only like affect essentially like regular Chaos Space Marines and not Heretic Astartes. I'd also assume that stratagems will get the same treatment. Like it'll be like core Chaos Space Marine stuff, or core like whatever else. You definitely are not going to be able to get a 1 CP Veterans of the Long War on your Death Guard. But like, so really a really nice way to use them is, for instance, like you can drop your Death Strat Bomb and give them for 3 CP, give them +2 to wound, so that strength 3 all of a sudden goes to like you're wounding T5 stuff on 3s, right? So now it's like, oh, okay, that's actually not bad with +2 to wound. So I'm not that popular. It's just like my stuff. But yeah, I really hope we get an updated Chaos Space Marine book. I know a lot of people were saying, like, well, Jim, they just had one, but keep in mind, we've had already 2 Marine books since that Chaos Space Marine book. We had a Marine book right after it, and then we've had another Marine book that just dropped. So I don't think it's that far fetched for us to get a Chaos Space Marine book. But one thing that I'm just working on the bone right now for these guys, and the way I like to do bone is kind of like the backwards bone, and it makes it really easy. So I'll take a little bit of see my palette here. It's a bit. I'll take a little bit of Agrax Earthshade and then a little bit of black, and I like to use the Coracle Coal Black because it does have like a bit of a matting agent. And once I've done I'll do a bone base coat, wash with Agrax, and then kind of highlight with bone. But then I'll go back and I'll build up the Agrax. Actually, usually add a little bit of water to that. Kind of like a 50-50 mix of Agrax and water, about halfway up. Handle. This guy, so I'm going to base halfway up. Yeah, this it's funny that you can't even buy a Lord of Contagion. That's actually hilarious. I'm surprised GW didn't release Dark, like, you know how they have the Heroes of the Imperium set, which is like that one sprue from Indominus set. I was really hoping they would release like kind of like a version of that with the Death Guard half, with like the drone, the I think there's some Plague Marines on there. I think there's like yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, I think I think customers would have been up in arms if they'd released like 5 armor books in a row. Generally, they're quite upset. So. Like, sorry, I don't want to paint any. Not taking. Models are just so detailed. So many. Yeah, the Death Guard combat patrol is bizarre. Not only is it illegal, but like it's bad in general. Poxwalkers. It's like, I think they could have done like gotten rid of 20 of the Poxwalkers and throw like a dash out of them. Think Chaos Knights have any spot in the meta? Honestly, I'd say it really depends on your format. So in WTC, which is what I've been playing, and I have to tell you guys, I used to be a bit of a team tournament like curmudgeon. I didn't always love team tournaments because I guess I'm a Greek SOB, but I've really grown to love the team format, and the more I play it, the more I think it's like the best 40k format, and the way that 40k really should be played, because it really not only is the meta game of like the pairings and the like matchups. Not only do I love that part, but I also love the part where, well, I also love being on a team, but I especially like the fact that it really mixes up the meta and it forces teams to have that variety of meta. And I think that's something that's like, I've been playing lists that I would normally never play, because if I was, say, playing in a singles tournament, the like top players would all be playing kind of similar, the same 3 factions. So the nice thing about the team tournament format is, like, as a player, I get to actually play a lot of varied lists as well. So to the question about whether I think Chaos Knights are worth it, generally I would say it depends on the format. What I do know is the WTC format, the terrain is quite unforgiving. There's a lot of terrain. It's quite thick. I actually think it's a little bit too heavy in some cases. Even the like light, quote unquote, light tables for WTC are quite heavy and quite hard to move around in. And the heavy tables are like insane. So I personally think that in a format like that where there is a lot of really heavy terrain, they just don't have the tools and or ability to kind of move around. The other thing is I just think in general, like Knights are really hard pressed unless you can bring in some allies. The game has really turned into an objective based game. I don't know. That's very cryptic. I don't know. But the game has really turned into a testing something on what, like terrain maps or Chaos Knights. The game has turned into an objective-based game, and so I think Knights. I think if they do like re-release a Chaos Knight book, it should be almost like Renegades and Heretics and Chaos Knights, almost like the AdMech book, or something like that, where there is like an infantry component. Because I truly believe that this game is turned so much into an objective game that running around with just 3 models, it's just so hard to play the objective game because a lot of missions require to be. I think yeah, like a lot of those it's just too hard to score objectives, and then as Tom's pointing out, like in an eight person team event, do I want to spend one of my slots on Chaos Knights? Zero chance. I have some Chaos Knights. I have a few Armigers and a big Chaos Knight painted, so I'd love to be able to field them again. Daniel, thanks for tuning in, man. I appreciate it. So have a good night. Yeah, so I think they definitely have a place, but it's just they're just not good, right? And I actually don't think that's the worst thing. Like, I actually appreciate a game like Blood Bowl, because like they explicitly say like, hey, certain armies are not good. But like in Blood Bowl, there's like A tier, B tier, C tier teams, and certain teams are just harder to play. I actually wish 40k did something like that. Now that obviously could change over time as Codex is released, but I wish like the factions actually came with like a bit of a disclaimer saying like, hey, if you want to play XY faction, it's going to be a lot harder, and we know it's harder, and like that's just how the faction plays. It's just like it's hard mode, right? I think what that would do is help alleviate a lot of saltiness, because people would know right off the bat before they get into a faction whether it's going to be like easy to play or hard to play, and then also like, you know, and then they can't get too mad. So I've done the kind of first, so going back to the bone, I've done that first layers dry. Now I'm going in, I've added a little bit of the black to my Agrax, and I'm basically going up bone a little bit less than I did the first time, kind of to leave that. So that. And what this is going to do is I'm going to kind of continue this process about 3 or 4 times. And this is going to add, thanks for the follow. Did it? What this is going to add is like it's going to continuously build that like kind of darkness, I guess, until I get to right to the tip where it's going to be almost black. And it's just a really nice bone effect. And the nice thing about that is it doesn't actually require a lot of work. It's something that you can kind of do pretty quickly. Doesn't require you to kind of do like that kind of intense like striation effect that a lot of like bone techniques require. So I'm really hoping that we get when we do get the new Chaos Knight book, it's going to be like similar to the AdMech book, where it's like knights and then some amount of troops or like bodies. I personally feel knights should not be a solo faction and part of a larger whole. It's kind of silly that it's like it would be like having an all tank army in real life with no infantry. I know real life is not a good analog, but something to note. build the highlights, or I guess low lights, darker. Dark shadow. And because I'm just kind of dealing with a very thin wash here, I can be a little messy with it. It's going to dry really nice. I'm not too worried about like that. And later what I'm going to go do is actually go back with my bone color and smooth out any sort of stuff that are not. That's like before done, and I'm going to now switch back to the original. I'm going to add a bit more black to my palette. Yep. Does anyone watch Modern Family? I started watching Modern Family. I'm not sure if I like it. A lot of good things about it. I got about halfway through. I love it. Family are. I can tell Tom's definitely not. Other people have watched it. That's kind of the, I don't know if you can tell there, but you can kind of see the transition in the bone. And there's a little bit of blotchiness there with like the bone, but I'm gonna go back and fix that. That's like a nice kind of like blunt to bone transition. And it literally took me no time at all. Has anyone picked up the new book called Penitent by Dan Abnett, based on the Eisenhorn trilogy? Anyone's been I just actually so I was a huge fan of the Eisenhorn trilogy. That was like probably one of my all-time books from Games Workshop, and I recently actually repurchased the original Eisenhorn trilogy and Ravner trilogy on Audible. Great service if you're. I have all the 40K audiobooks there, and I re-listened to those books. They're still like re-listening to them after probably like 15 years. There's still probably some. There's a few scenes, especially in the second book, talking about. So I picked up Penitent and Pariah, which are basically on one of the characters from the original novels, Elizabeth Beckwin, who was she's a pariah for the pariah gene, and it's based on kind of her daughter or clone. It's not quite clear at this point. And so I've been listening to that as I paint, streaming times. Enjoyable. It's narrated by a female, which I really like because of Black Library books. So it's nice to have a book that slightly different. Jonathan Keeble, who does all the audiobooks, is a boss. Like his narration on those books is unbelievable. All the different characters in this. What's that one about, Jay? It's new. I generally don't like the 40K books, to be honest. Like the Space Marine ones, because I feel like some of them are very like ad heavy. It's like, and the Intercessor Marine got into the Repulsor Executioner and fired his auto bolt rifle. Like it's like how many like pieces of information that's like tied to like a specific like unit or rule like fit into one novel. So I find they're a little bit like advertisement like, whereas I find some of the 30K ones or the ones that are like more about just like regular humans, they're better character stories. They're less about like just spitting in as many like 40K product placements as possible. I don't know if anyone else has had that like. So. Going back with a little bit of Agrax to kind of smooth out some of the here. Oh, that's cool. Is it like the Gilliman comic where like Dante gets killed and basically taken over by another person? Dante the chapter master, the current chapter master. I feel like I don't pay attention to stuff that much. Not really clear. What he is, it's like a regular commander or sacrilege. Oh, you don't even know. Oh, you mean the part where he dies? I was like, I hope you know if he's the chapter master or not. But yeah, in the so in the Gilliman, in the Marnius Calgar comic from Marvel, they're doing a really cool comic, which I actually think is fine. A lot of people don't like the fact that GW. Apparently, like Marnius Calgar gets Marnius Calgar gets killed in like the first issue, and like another neophyte takes his name and says he's Marnius Calgar. So like the whole like story of Marnius, it's like a dude named Bob or something. So the whole story of Marnius Calgar is like a total lie and like false. Like he's not who he says he is, and like it's like this big twist, I guess, that the actual Marnius Calgar died like many years before as a kid, and then like the person that actually is Marnius Calgar is basically just like a a phony. I don't know. Ironisaurus, dude, that's awesome, man. I absolutely love the 40K books. I'm fully caught up now. I just finished Fury of Magnus, which is the latest in the Siege of Terra series for 30K, and I'm really excited for Mortis, which is I think the next one that's coming out, which is like basically Titan Legion battles. Although I will say, Titan Death, which was I think like one of the second to last books before they got into Siege of Terra, was not my favorite book. So I'm hoping this Mortis book is slightly better than Titan Death, because I thought Titan Death was I thought it'd be one of the better ones, but it was actually one of the oh. So I've done all the washes and I smoothed out the highlights, and so now I'm just going in with a really thin amount of bone, of kind of this bone color, and I'm basically, now this is where I'm going to kind of add my kind of striations. So I'm just going to kind of hit the edges of the bone, kind of just to kind of give it a little bit of texture, just around where there's like gnashes. I'm going to just put a little bit of bone on the edge, kind of here. This will just help kind of pop out the bone a little bit. And it's really easy because I can just kind of the brush, kind of add the brush, and just like that, like all the bone is done. I don't know if you guys can see that. So you can see kind of the bone shoulder pad sticking out. And I'm actually using this kind of like an olive color from a little bit off-white. Kind of a warm tone in it. It's not quite. They have an ivory color that I really like that I use for colors, but the off-white bone color I make kind of a little bit darker bone rather than using which is a lot more yellow. Anyone else read any of the books, the 40K books? You guys read? Do you have any favorite books? Tyrannosaurus, what was your favorite 30K book so far? Uh, like the original trilogy, like Horse Rising, the one Horse Rising, Galaxy, uh, oh dude, Legion. That's the Alpha Legion one, right? It's False Gods is the third. Legion is the Alpha Legion one, right? Horse Rising, False Gods, Galaxy Infinite. But yeah, it was 2 out of 3 is not bad considering I read those books like 12 years ago, when they, or like probably like 12, 13 years ago when they came out back. So Fulgrim's a little weird. I actually find any of the I don't know. Um, Fulgrim is like it gets his character is just like so kind of over the top in the Horse Heresy stuff that I don't actually like. I like Fulgrim as a character, but like he's one of those characters where you feel like he just does dumb stuff and for no particular reason. Yeah, but the thing is, Tom, he also wrote A Thousand Suns, Prospero Burns, um, all the books with Magnus Graham McNeil wrote, and like those were awesome. Those are my favorite Horse Heresy books. Well, it could be because I'm a Thousand Suns player, but Fury of Magnus is awesome. Wrath of Magnus is awesome. Prospero Burns is awesome. All right, Prospero Burns is Dan Abnett, but A Thousand Suns was like the companion book. It's basically it's like the same events, but from the perspective of the Thousand Suns, and then Prospero Burns is like from the Space Wolves. Oh, come on, man. Now you're just... I don't know. Also, the one where... yeah, so I just like Magnus. Maybe I'm a bit of a fanboy. But I really like Graham McNeil's novels. Agree to disagree, my friend. But my favorite book is probably Solar War. I really liked, just because it's like, it's so just like, it just kind of really gives you a sense of like the scale of the siege. I really liked. Slaves to Darkness I really liked, and Master of Mankind is probably one of my Master of Mankind is probably one of my favorites, just because like it's one of the first books that really gives you an insight into like the Emperor and like kind of where his headspace is. I really like Master of Mankind. I'm really hoping that we do get a little bit more kind of backstory in the Emperor. I like that he's mysterious, but I kind of wish we knew more about him. I'm annoying that like, but it's really funny listening to. I'm listening to Pry right now, which is the Dan Abnett book, based in 40K, and there's like literally scenes where like the Primarchs and the legions, just like the regular Astartes, they're like treated like myths. Like people are like, Space Marines are not a thing that exists, because in like 99% of the Imperium, like people will never see a Space Marine in their life, and this is like 10,000 years ago. Like think about history in Earth 10,000 years ago, and how many people know about it, right? There's very few people that actually like know about what happened on Earth 10,000 years ago, and that's kind of like the 40K universe. Like everything that happened is kind of like long forgotten myth, and it's probably as mythical to them as like the ballad, or sorry, not the ballad, the Iliad, is it? Or like some of the Greek mythology and some of those like stories about like gods fighting each other. Like that's kind of how, that plus another 5,000 years is like how far back the Horus Heresy is for a lot of people in the 40K universe. So I always find it really cool that like for the most part, like 90% of people think that Space Marines are a myth and kind of fake and don't exist, fake news. That yeah, it's just really interesting like how cultured they all are. Yeah, I'd agree. Fulgrim and Mechanicum I didn't like. Honestly, the worst Horse Heresy book by far is Damnation of Pythos. So that's probably like my most hated book of 40k. It's like literally like an episode of Transformers where like they're fighting dinosaurs on a planet for an hour, and then the book ends, and you're like, what was the point of that book, and what does it have anything to do with the 30k of the Abyss? I don't know. Is that a name of it? I know there's something of the Abyss, one of the books. Let's see if I can pull it up here. I actually have a Horus Heresy reading order on my, because it's important that you read. Actually, I don't have it. I lied. All right, let's take a look here. Together. So, got official books. Okay, so let's see here. So, I think you're thinking Battle for the Abyss, then Counter, which I actually like because, well, that's the one with the I'm not spoiling this. Well, spoilers. This book came out in 2008, so if you haven't read it by now, this is the one with the word bearer ship. I'm pretty sure. What's it called? Something Abyss. Yeah. What's the name of the ship there? In that one. Oh, the Furious Abyss. Of course, it's Furious Abyss. Like, I wonder who has to come up with the Games Workshop names. All right, what else is good? Thousand Suns, great. Tom's a liar. I didn't like First Heretic, and I didn't like Nemesis just because I thought, I don't know, Lorgar is the most insufferable of the Primarchs. I don't really think he's like a good Primarch, so and his story's kind of lame. And yeah, Deliverance Lost is awful. No Fear I don't like. Outcast Dead I didn't like. Fear to Tread is really great just because you get it the first look of Angron. Angel Exterminatus. Okay, actually, Tom, I will agree with you. Grabbing Deal or Angel Exterminatus, that's actually one of the worst books. So I agree with you there. What else do we got? Mark of Calth is great. Vulcan Lives. All the Vulcan ones. Unremembered Empire is awesome. Vengeful Spirit is awesome. Damnation of Pythos. This is my most hated book. God, I can't. I'm looking at the release dates of these books, and I'm like, was it really that long ago? I feel like I just read them. Pharos is great, or is not great. Sorry. The Silent War I really appreciated. That's like about. And most of the last ones have been really good. Like Master of Mankind is awesome. Crimson King, that's the one I was thinking about. Crimson King is awesome. It's probably one of my favorite. Runestorm is awesome. Slaves to Darkness, Heralds of Siege. These last four are really good as well. I really like Buried Dagger just because it shows Mortarians drop. And then of the Siege of Terra ones, if you've read them, I think so far of the Siege of Terra, Solar War and Lost of the Damned are my two favorite. I've read Sons of the Selenar, I've read Fury of Magnus, and well, I read them all. Saturnine I liked, but Sons of the Selenar was a cool short story, the novellas, and Fury of Magnus is a novella as well. So I'm hoping that Dan Abnett closes it out, to be honest. I think he's their strongest writer. And it sounds like there's going to be, how many books did it say? 8 main novels. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 novels so far, and 2 novellas. So I'd imagine that the Yeah, Crimson King's really good. It's kind of like Crimson King and Fury of I don't even keep track of them all. So he's done a few. So he's done basically he's like Gav Thorpe, who does all the Dark Angels books. He does all the Thousand Suns books. So he did Crimson King. And then he also did like Wrath of Magnus, I believe, somewhere in here. There's a Thousand Suns. There's Crimson King. I'm sure there's Wrath of Magnus. Maybe there's Fury of Magnus. Is Wrath of Magnus not a book? Wrong. I just feel bad for old Maggie Poo. I'm not understood. Or Wrath of Magnus. Maybe that's I'm thinking the supplement called Wrath of Magnus. Yeah, 40k supplement. Anyways. Alright guys, I think I'm gonna call it there. I got to I'm gonna grab some lunch and get some water before I move on to some other stuff. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Please make sure to like and subscribe and follow me on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook and Instagram and all the other things. I'm going to be doing some more streams this week as well as some discussion. Tom, thanks for the discussion, man. Always good to chat with you. Everyone else, have a good night, and I'll talk to you later.